Good morning. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. I'm going to try to shorten the program today because I've got to jump on an airplane and head to Nashville. As I have said, I am heading to Nashville, Tennessee today. I'm always, the exact name of this always eludes me a little bit, but let me see if I can get this. Now, why is that? Oh, the Fearless Roll Call Conference. That's what it is. The Fearless Roll Call Conference. So I'm looking forward to being down there for that, and I'm headed out there today in order to get there. Jason Whitlock is the sponsor of this, the host of it. And so I will be with him. A lot of great speakers. Alan Jackson, somebody I really like. Corey Brooks, guy out in Chicago, pastor out in Chicago, New Beginnings Ministries out there. So they've got a great lineup. And I'm humbled to be included in these tremendous leaders, among these tremendous leaders. And so if you're available, you're in the area, that's in Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to be at the, again, what's the name of this place? Rocket Town in Nashville, Tennessee. Rocket Town. That's at 601 4th Avenue South in Nashville. So looking forward to being there, and I'm flying out here shortly. I want to remind everybody we're 2 weeks from today, we will be hosting our Stand Awards dinner. 2 weeks from today. If you have not signed up to get your complimentary tickets, this is the next day or two will be the last opportunity you have to do so. And we would love to see you there. Just email us at awardsdinner@standinc.net, awardsdinner@standinc.net. Or you can call us at 757-375-6444. That's 757-375-6444. Now, I've been thinking about this because, of course, I don't know whether you all saw I'm sure you saw the news that they're actually doing a play in San Francisco, a musical about Luigi Mangione. A musical, a tribute to the assassin, Luigi Mangione. And they say that it is sold out for the entire run already. Now, I don't know how long the run is, but however long it is, the fact that they've sold a single ticket is a testament to, again, the utter disconnect from reality that these people are living under. And I went through a list a couple days ago of the people. These are the kinds of people they choose to honor. George Floyd, Luigi Mangione, Abrego Garcia, Mahmoud Khalil, some of the most infamous characters you ever want to think of. These are the people that they choose to lionize, that they choose to exalt. Because again, those are the people that the cult identifies as their heroes. And people who love our country, like President Trump and we Christians who love our country, we love God, we love our country, we love the American people. We don't even hate the people who are opposed to us, but we are the villains. We are the terrible people. We are dubbed as. I mean, can you imagine that the FBI was actually listening to the Southern Poverty Law Center describe being American Family Association, with which I'm affiliated, Family Research Council, with which I used to be affiliated, as hate groups? It's bizarre, folks. I mean, think about it. It's bizarre. Organizations that are built on the love of God are dubbed hate groups because we adhere to a biblical worldview about issues of sexual morality and sin. That's really all it boils down to. They're not saying we're hate groups because we hate people of a particular race, or they're saying we're hate groups because we don't subscribe to the view that homosexuality and now this whole transgenderism insanity that this stuff is good or right or normal. We believe it is abnormal, it is sin, it is depravity, it is degeneracy. And by holding that viewpoint, you are, by their definition, a hate group. But by their definition, God is a hate God, Jesus is a hate Savior. Because Jesus drew a very clear distinction between sin and righteousness. And sin is righteousness is obey his commandments. Sin is violate his commandments. It's very straightforward. And yet the Bible says, even for a righteous man, even for a righteous man, most would not dare to die. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But Christ died for us while we were yet sinners. So he said, I come to call the sinners, not the righteous, to repentance. So he loves the sinners. But yet, those of us who follow him and those of us who adhere to his moral vision, we're haters, according to the left. Here they are praising assassins and people who try to kill terrorists like Hamas and Hezbollah. They're supporting and praising these people. They're not, because they're not haters. They're revolutionaries. They're fighting for justice. Oh, sure, they've killed a few Jews along the way, but that's a small price to pay, right? That's a small price to pay for their quest for justice. But we who are interested in killing no one, who are simply promulgating ideas as to our vision, our worldview for this country, completely nonviolent, my system just froze. Didn't have any problem yesterday, but having a problem today. There we go. So we who are nonviolent, promulgating and promoting ideas and ideals that we think lead to human flourishing, and we want everyone to flourish. No. We're the haters. Yeah, we're the haters. We're the bigots. It is really. I never read these comic books, but I've heard about this comic bizarro world where everything is the opposite of what it should be. That's the world the left lives in now, where everything is the opposite of what it should be. Luigi Mangione is a hero when he should be a villain facing the death penalty. Well, he is probably facing the death penalty, and he may well get the death penalty. I don't know what the outcome is going to be if he's found guilty of premeditated murder, which it does appear he's done. Of course, he's entitled to his day in court. But if he's found to be, he could be subject to the death penalty. But no. They want to write musicals about him. They want to sing his praises. It's, again, folks, you cannot even relate to this if you're trying to relate to it on the basis of logic or facts. You have to relate to it on the basis of cult-like thinking that is completely disconnected from reality. That's the only way to do it. Because otherwise, your brain just goes tilt, trying to rationalize and trying to understand on any rational basis how these folks think. You just can't, because it's not possible, because they're not thinking rationally. All they're doing is emoting. They're being led by their demonic passions, their emotions, the indoctrination that many of them have received in the schools and the colleges that they've attended, and by watching people like the demonic lesbian Rachel Maddow spew her insanity. That's where they're getting their information. So obviously, if the root is poison, the fruit is poison. If you're growing in poison soil, you're going to produce poison fruit. And that's where most of these folks are. And I don't think they, at this point, just like any cult, they rob people of their ability to think and analyze what they're doing. they rob them of that ability. You're not allowed to do that. Your faithfulness to the cult is measured by your unquestioning devotion to anything that they require of you, anything that they say. Their lie becomes your truth. I mean, just think about it for a second and if connect these two dots. Is there really a difference between a cult that can convince a father, a mother, to turn over their minor child to a cult leader, for that cult leader to have sex with the minor child, which as a man, as a father, as a grandfather, I'd hurt somebody first. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I'd hurt somebody before I do that. You might be going to meet your maker if you tried that. And that is a normal reaction. Every man listening to me right now says, exactly. But in a cult, you've got men turning over their daughters to some cult leader for him to have sex with them and make them one of his wives. I mean, David Koresh did it. I think the guy's named Tony Campano did it, and others. The guy who took the folks down to Guyana, it'll come to me, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy who started the People's Temple, took those people down to Guyana and killed all those people by suicide. He had the use of all the women in the camp. I mean, it's just, and a normal person goes, what father would turn his daughter over to some man? I mean, for us, it's unthinkable. Now, let's connect the dot. That is the same mindset that says, I will turn my child over to a teacher who will teach my child that you were born in the wrong body and that your true sexuality is that you're a girl in a boy's body or a boy in a girl's body. And I will inject you with hormones and I will block your puberty and I will cut off your breasts and we will cut off your genitalia and we're going to make you a better person by doing so. And then telling the parent, if you don't go along with this, we're going to take your child. Is there any difference? I don't think there is, not substantively. There really is no substantive difference in that whatsoever. Between a cult saying your duty is to turn your child over to the cult leader in order for the cult leader to have sex with your child, and these transgender, gender rebellious ideologues telling parents, if you don't allow me to inject your child with hormones, if you don't allow me to call your son by a female name or your daughter by a male name, if you don't allow me to block puberty for your son or your daughter, if you don't allow me to get your daughter in line to have her breast cut off so she can be what the person she's really supposed to be, if you don't allow me to have your son's genitalia cut off so he can be the girl he was supposed to be, if you don't allow me to do that, we're going to take your children away from you because you are a bad parent. If you were a good parent, you would praise me for doing it. You would be gratified by me doing it. Is there any difference? I mean, think about it. There really isn't, is there? And not in my view. I don't think there's a dime worth of difference substantively. Now, sure, the outcome, you could argue, is different because in one case the outcome is to try to have sex with young girls. In the other case, it's to try to sexually mess with children and leave them sexually damaged and confused. I would argue long term the motivation is the same. I think long term the motivation is the left is to make these children available for their own sexually deviant intentions. I think that's the long term goal. The long-term goal is basically sexual anarchy, where there is no morality, there are no standards, there are no restrictions. There are no moral restraints. Just basically do whatever you want to do with whoever you want it, including children. I think the end goal is the same as the authority cult that convinces people to turn their young children over to some cult leader to have sex. And the demonic cult, the Democrat Party and the left, convinces people to turn their children over to them so they can change their gender, alter their bodies, and so forth. But the end result is the same thing, which is to bring them into the cult of basically sexual libertinism. So let me say, in the time I've got left, there's a lot of discussion right now about the quandary of the Democrat Party, the Democrat Party, and the people who seem to be in the forefront are this woman Crockett and AOC. They seem to be they're getting exalted right now. And I guess Crockett is about to take a spot on the Oversight Committee. Of course, she'll be in the minority, so they won't have any authority or control. I have a suggestion. And, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's also serious. Because I think this is the best strategy for the Democrats to try to save their party, although I'm dedicated to the destruction of the Democrat Party as it presently exists. I think this is the best way for them to save their party long term. Now, there'll be a minority party, and here it is. You ready? Here it is. They need to just come out and say, look, we have never been honest with the American people because we didn't think you were ready for it, but we now think there are enough Americans that are ready for it, and we're just going to come out explicitly and say it. We believe in Marxism and socialism and communism, and we believe that America would be a better place if we governed ourselves by the principles of Marxism and socialism and communism. That is the agenda we are pursuing. We believe that America would be a better place if we threw off all the God stuff and ignored the Declaration of Independence and ignored the First Amendment and religious liberty and began to realize that religion, particularly Christianity, is an enemy of our country and an enemy of true liberty and justice. And we need to get rid of Christianity. We need to ignore Christianity. We need to diminish Christianity. We need to marginalize Christianity and marginalize those aspects of our background because they have not been good for us and they have not been good for the people. And we need to move toward a Marxist model for America in which we all acknowledge that there is no God and that we are the final and ultimate arbiters of what is moral and immoral, what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong. I think they need to say, we believe that there are enough Americans in our country who agree with us that if we bring in illegal aliens who are looking for a place where they're going to find social justice, and we can get them legalized, we can get them to vote, we can cobble together a majority that will allow us to govern this country as a Marxist, socialist, communist nation. And we will be better off. And we will learn from Xi Jinping and communist China how best to do that, how to have an economy that is at least has the trappings of freedom, while at the same time exercising the kind of control that we think is necessary in order to build the utopian society that we all want. Now, they're never going to say that, right? But you know what? I think if they said that, what they would do is they would solidify the base of people who believe the things I just espoused, and I really believe that most Democrats believe all that garbage. They would solidify those people, they would unify those people, and they would have a minority party, true, but they would have a minority party that was very clear in its objectives and would have the hope, at least, of persuading more Americans to go along with them. The problem that they're having right now is the things I just told you are the things that they really believe, but they won't say that because they know most Americans are not going to go along with it. So they have to duck and bob and weave and dance and pretend somehow that they really are adherents of our constitutional republic. We have a constitutional crisis. They could care less about the Constitution. I mean, they could care less about the Constitution. They bring the Constitution up only when they think it will satisfy whatever agenda item they have in mind. But beyond that, they're not interested in America as a constitutional republic, and they don't want America to be a constitutional republic. That's why they always use the word democracy. Because what they really want is a country in which, as long as they can cobble together a majority by pulling out, by using illegal aliens, using whatever black folks are stupid enough to keep supporting them, using whatever the sexual deviant community that feels like they need them, because, I mean, it's all they've got. If Trump's not going to celebrate their so-called Pride in Sin, Pride Month, Pride in Sin, if he's not going to celebrate that, then they've got to find the people who will, and those people become part of their coalition and part of advancing the agenda of sexual deviancy. And then, the Hollywood types who are hedonists, who want a party that is hedonistic like they are, and where there are no moral rules, there are no moral restraints on anybody. People just pretty much do whatever they want to do. They cobble together a majority, and then with that majority, they impose their will on the American people. That's why they keep calling us a democracy, because that's what they want. And the Constitution's in the way. I mean, because look, if we truly adhered to the Constitution, I had my son on Tuesday, and he talked to us about the Second Amendment, which, I mean, my son is really an expert on that. He studies that issue very, very diligently. And we were talking about this whole issue of universal reciprocity, where if you have the permit to carry a firearm in one state, it should be recognized in every other state in the union. Because after all, it is a constitutional right. But that's not the way it's treated in our country. See, in a constitutional republic, remember, when the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary, whatever that language is, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed by whom? By the government. By the government. But these people don't care about that. I mean, I've said I travel with security, and there are states I go into where my security can't bring a firearm. Even though these are not bodyguards, okay? This is a professional protection agency that has all kinds of licenses and all kinds of sanctions and training and so forth. These are professionals. These are not big guys who just say, I'll protect you. These are people who are extensively trained to do that job. They can't carry a firearm in Illinois. They can't carry a firearm. I don't think they can carry one into California. Now, until recently, they couldn't carry one into D.C. All the criminals have them, but yet the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let me get the language of that, because I hate botching that. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I don't know whether you were on that call, but Dr. Melvin Johnson was on the call. He pointed out, I think this was during World War II, if I'm not mistaken, that there was a plan to invade our southern border through Mexico, and the plan was scuttled because they realized that if they invaded the southern border through Mexico and came up into Texas, they would not only face an army, they would face an armed citizenry who were entirely and fully capable of defending themselves because they had the arms and they had the ammunition to do so. And they decided we can't just walk in there and take over because these people will fight us, they'll resist us. And you add them to the army and you've got an unwinnable situation. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So that when tyranny and an unlawful force tries to encroach upon us, our rights, our liberties, to take our lives, to take our property, we have a right to defend ourselves. That's a constitutional right. The Democrats don't care about that. And it specifically says shall not be infringed by the government. They don't care about that because every place they have control of governments, they infringe on that right. And there's no question. You can't even debate that. Of course they infringe on the right. Of course they do. That's why they say we are democracy. Because in their view, well, if we can get a majority to go along with it, we can essentially subvert the Constitution. We can essentially turn it into a dead letter. That's what many states have done with the Second Amendment. They've turned it into a dead letter. It has no real impact in places like Illinois, California, Michigan, Massachusetts. Now these states will vary somewhat, but it has no. I was saying on the call, if I'm driving, which is rare because I don't really like long drives, but occasionally I have to make them, and I'm going through several states, I have to look at the laws of those states to make sure as I travel through those states that I am in compliance with the law. So maybe in one state, like if I'm traveling through North Carolina, I can carry just like I can in Virginia. But then you get to another state, say if I'm traveling north and I'm going through Delaware or Maryland or Pennsylvania, the entirely different set of rules where you can't carry your firearm. And in some cases, I found in one state, I don't know whether it's Maryland or Delaware, where you had to put the firearm, you could carry the firearm through a state, but you had to put the firearm in a lockbox. You had to have 2 locks on the firearm lockbox. You had to have the lockbox too far away from the driver to be reachable. Now, does that make any sense? Yeah, lock it up and then put it in the trunk, essentially, so that you can never get to it. So if you get carjacked, there's no opportunity for you to defend yourself because the state has, in effect, disarmed you. But this says, the Second Amendment says, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Do Democrats care about that? Absolutely not. They could care less. They could care less. So what we're dealing with is people who really, if they were being honest with the American people, they would really say, look, we don't want individual liberty. What we want is a collectivist dystopia. That's what we want, in which we deal with people not as individuals, we deal with people as collectivist groups. So we put the Hispanics over here, and we put the blacks over here, and we put the whites over here, and we put the Asians over here, and we put the sexual deviants over here, and and we deal with each of these groups, and we create equity for them. As long as they help us stay in power, we'll give them equity. What about the individual? The individual doesn't matter in a totalitarian or communist or Marxist state. The individual does not matter. And see, that's what they want. They don't want to recognize individual human dignity. What they want to recognize is collectivist identity. That's what they want to recognize. And that's the way Marxism works. You're not an individual in Marxism. You are part of the proletariat, or you are part of the bourgeoisie, or you are part of the owners of the means of capital. You're not an individual. You're part of a group. And American leftists have modified that under the influence of Antonio Gramsci, the famous Italian communist. They modified that to include race and all these other categories because they realize in America you cannot create a revolution with class distinctions because Americans are not class obsessed people, because we believe that nobody's better than anybody else inherently. I mean, as a human being, your behavior might make you different and might make it necessary to treat you differently, but you're inherently, as a human being, nobody's better than anybody else, and that every individual should have the opportunity to fulfill his or her God-given potential. And that's not the way they think. They think, no. You're in this category. We're going to put you over here. And we're going to make sure that equity demands that this group over here has the same stuff as this group over here. Well, what about me as an individual, and what about maybe an extraordinary gifting that I have? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Because it's not, your individuality doesn't matter. Your collectivist identity is what matters. What tribe do you belong to? That's what matters. Okay, folks, I'm going to end it. But look, the rise of the nation state was one of the greatest things that ever happened for mankind because it ended tribalism, which led to nothing but continual wars, murders, conflicts. So the rise of the nation state suppressed tribal distinctions and brought people together and unified them as a single nation. The left wants to return to tribalism. They want to return to the failed condition of human beings before the nation state arose, when in every continent in the world, tribes were fighting each other over territory, over hunting grounds, over family disputes, over tribal disputes, over you name it. It was happening in Africa, it was happening in Asia, it was happening in Europe, it was happening everywhere in the world. And the rise of the nation state brought much of that, at least, to a halt. But the left thinks we'd be better off that we go back to tribalism. So there's my tribe and your tribe and this tribe and that tribe, and we'll have all these tribes properly identified and have people in their little tribal silos, and we'll make sure that everybody's happy by making sure, oh, this tribe has too much. We're going to take from that tribe and give to this tribe. Oh, that tribe has too little. We're going to take from this tribe and give to that tribe. That's Marxism. That's socialism, American style. But it's really a regression to a failed way of life. What do we emphasize when we say the Pledge of Allegiance? One nation, not a bunch of warring tribes, one nation under God, all answering to the same ultimate authority with liberty, indivisible. Because only with the authority of God do we become indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the only way to get liberty and justice for all. Folks, there is no justice without righteousness. And there is no liberty without truth. Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Well, the moment you suppress the truth, the moment you undermine the truth, the moment you destroy the truth, you have destroyed liberty. You have set up a slave system, because the slave system depends upon lies, and liberty depends upon truth. Jesus said so. And there is no justice without righteousness. And social justice is not justice, because justice needs no definition. It needs no prefix. If it's justice, it's based upon righteousness. And in righteousness, there's no such thing as imbalanced scales. imbalanced scales, false scales are an abomination to God. And that's exactly what DEI is. DEI is nothing but another Marxist idea. That's all it is. From each according to his need, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Okay, gotta go. God bless each and every one of you. Pray for me. I gotta fly out of here momentarily, but I wanted to spend some time with you all. And until then, if you're in the Nashville area, come on down to Jason Whitlock's event. It's going to be a great event, and I'm looking forward to it. I guess you can go to his, just Google him, go to his website. You'll get all the details. I won't take time to give them to you again. And don't forget our Stand Awards dinner. We'd love to have you come. It's 2 weeks from today, May 16th, 7 p.m. at Cornerstone Chapel. Go to standamerica.us, standamerica.us to get more information. You can donate, you can buy tickets, you can sponsor, or you can come as a complimentary guest. But I'd love to have you come. And until then, until I talk to you again, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Go to church. I hope you go to a church where the word of God is proclaimed without apology, equivocation, dilution, or compromise. And it blesses you and helps you grow as a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. And in the meantime, you stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.